We all look at the same world, but we all look at it in a different way. Some see a concept. We see potential. Some just see sheer speed. We see inspirational engineering. Some just see beautiful lines. We see character. Some see a new light. We see a new vision. Some see a factory. We see progress. Some see a new motor. We see a new era. Some see what's there. We see beyond. Audi.
Some see a video, I see a mean machine with a vision. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mayank Chang, and on behalf of Audi India, I would like to welcome you to the fourth session of the Visionarium 2020. Please take screenshots, please take pictures, post about this session, tell us what you feel, and don't forget to tag Audi India using the hashtag Audi Visionarium. Well, if we are all ready, if all of this has been done, then let me tell you what has gone before. We've had some mind-blowing conversations already at Visionarium 2020. On day one, we had the captain of the Indian cricket team, Virat Kohli, and he gave us some great insights on leadership and fitness. On day two, we had Chef Sanjeev Kapoor telling us about the importance of crafting a future where local cuisines and ingredients will be valued. And then yesterday, we had musical maestro Shankar Mahadevanji thrill us with an amazing musical performance while also speaking about the future of music both in India and around the world. The Visionarium so far has been a journey of revelations about various facets of our life. Today, we turn that curious gaze inwards towards creative expression. In our daily lives, the seat of creativity, that is our right brain, it usually is forced to take a back seat. Or given our professional pursuits, which leave little time for creative ones. But I wonder, could expressing this side of ourselves make our lives and futures better? What happens when the power of the right brain is unleashed? Its true gift, I believe, is the arts. The expression of intangible ideas that makes our world so much richer. Paintings, sculptures, theater, and of course, the many forms of the written word. All of them help reveal truths about the world and ourselves that are otherwise hard to see because they are behind the mist of all our professional ambitions. Few writers have expressed truths more universal as well as William Shakespeare. He once wrote, "All the world's a stage, and all men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." Well, I wonder if dear old Will was thinking about our next guest when he wrote this, because there are very few people who've played as many roles in their lives, both in their real and real life. Our guest, from waiting tables at the Taj Palace to being the official photographer of the Norwegian boxing team, from acting in ads to playing unforgettable award-winning characters in many, many movies. He is a man of many talents, a shining testament to the power of the right brain. Joining us today to talk about aesthetic expression is the man who always has a positive outlook towards life, the inimitable Boman Irani. Welcome, sir. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Django. Thank you so much. I mean, only my good old friend Will could have said it better than you. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to have you, it's so good to see you, Chang. You're such a wonderful young man, and it just made my heart feel proud to hear those things that you said. But honestly, I am ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I'm shy of praise, but at the same time, even though when we say nice things about someone, we are shy, but we also like to listen to them with one ear. You know, it's
Yes,
so
of
strange.
course. I mean, who doesn't
Come on,
like to
Chang,
be,
let's get this
the
conversation
recipient
rolling.
of
I
good
can't
things?
wait. I can't wait.
Yes, sir. Actually, before the conversation, one thing that I didn't know before this was that I knew that you were a photographer, but I didn't know that it was for you were the official photographer of the Norwegian boxing team. How did that happen? And
No,
what happened out there?
official photographer of the World Cup of boxing, actually.
Oh,
It was the
wow.
official photographer of the World Cup of boxing. I was yeah, and my previous job before that was taking photographs of school sports day, school cricket matches, school cycle
Hmm.
races, and I said, I got to up the game. Everything about us in our lives, Chang, is about upping the game and taking a little peek into the future. Because how long are you going to do the same thing over and over again? So one fine day, I decided, you know. Uh, Let me go for the big kahuna. Let me go for the big event. And I went and applied to be the official photographer of the World Cup of boxing. I got rejected.
Wow.
Yeah, I got rejected, but simply because I had a great variety of photographs about many things, cricket and athletics and motorsport and on a amateur level, but I didn't have a single shot on boxing. And he said, no, I want to see, you could be a great sports photographer, you have great sports timing, but you have no idea of boxing. So I went and I took pictures and took many, many pictures of some very terrible boxing. And somehow I decided that even though that the lighting isn't good, the location isn't good, the boxers were amateur boxers, but had to make it look professional. I think you've got to push yourself on any given day with whatever you have in your hand. Not turn on and say, oh, how am I going to make this work? This is it. This is what you have. Make it work. And I
Hmm.
squeezed whatever I could. I presented those pictures and I got the job.
Well, given what you would like to photograph before that, and even what you presented to the person who was going to employ you later, I believe that you always had an eye for the moving image, right? Things in motion, kinetic energy, and that's what probably had you already in the right space for this thing.
Yeah, but this is a professional world, right? You need to see your work. And if you turn around and say, but where am I going to get international looking photographs? Well,
Hmm.
make the best with what you have. Now, I'm a believer that you shouldn't grumble with your lot. Because the moment you start grumbling with your
Okay.
lot, you're in trouble. If you grumble, I can't make any progress because I'm in the lockdown, and I start grumbling, you will not make any
Hmm.
progress in the lockdown. If you turn on and say, I'm going to make this lockdown work for me to my advantage, there's something going to be great that comes out of it. For starters, this visionarium sounds very good. Uh, and I'm very glad to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
No, so happy to have you here, Bhavan. Speaking of grumbling, there is this. I just want to have your opinion on this. There's this grumbling. There's this, these alarm bells that have been ringing for a long time, and I wanted to know, what do you think about this popular notion? They say that no one has the time to read anymore. Newspapers are shutting down. Coffee
Ah,
shops are turning into the bookshops are turning into coffee shops to stay relevant. And this has been happening since a long time. People keep saying, people don't read anymore. What do you think about this?
I tend to agree, but more than anything, the optimist that I am, I tend to disagree also, Chang. And I'll tell you why. Because we are surrounded by, bombarded with instant information and instant gratification, all of that. But I disagree. People read,
Okay.
and people say nobody reads poet. And like, for example, today when I was told, and we had this meeting a few days ago, Chang, we'll talk about poetry. And for a minute, I
Yep.
turned around and said, poetry? Who's going to sit and listen to about poetry, Chang? I kind of argued for all of 2 minutes. And then I said to myself,
Yeah.
no, it's a wrong notion to believe and to assume that people do not like poetry, do not like to read, because people do. And I'll tell you something about poetry. I know, and there are people who are listening in, and I can't see you, unfortunately, but I can promise you that at some point in your life, you've written a poem or you've expressed your thoughts in lines, in words
Hmm.
that you would not necessarily be able to say or speak. You have, whether it's to your girlfriend or to your love, or in a form of an apology, or daddies who are sitting out there, who've written a poem to their daughter on the day of their marriage. People write poetry, believe it or not. People write poetry, and I'll tell you, there are a lot of people smiling when I'm saying this, you know, but a lot of people are closet bathroom poets. People love to write.
Ah.
People love to, yeah, because I'll tell you this, and I'll round this story up a little later on. Uh, People find the expression in not just writing some people may write a diary, some people may write letters, but believe me, uh, people write poetry too, and people read a lot of poetry. It takes you back to school in
Hmm.
many ways, the happy days that you had in school. My Is it okay if if I ramble along? Is it okay if I just ramble
Absolutely.
along without you, or you've got another question coming up, because I got lots to tell you? Is that okay?
We would love to
My
hear. I
During
would
this
love to
lockdown,
hear you speak, sir.
it's very strange that what I'm saying, that during this lockdown, my mother, she's 94 years old, Chang. She's
Hmm.
94, all right, and I'd go and have chai with mom morning and evening, and now a little longer, because I'm grateful to the lockdown in many ways, because it's made me spend more time with my mother, who's 94. And every day she'd make me do one of two things. One, read a story about a great man, a philanthropist, and his journey, number one. Or number two,
Oh
read me a
wow.
poem. Yeah, and I've been reading poems right through the lockdown to my mother, and it's so strange. My mother, she's 94, but ever since she's been, as long as I remember, she would say this. I've noticed my memory is failing me. All right. I said, don't talk rubbish, mom. Your memory is not failing you. And I start a poem. Okay, for example, Lord Allen's daughter, the chieftain to the Highlands, and she'll take off. Says, boatmen do not carry, and
Oh
I'll give
wow.
thee a silver pound to row you all the way. And I said, where's your memory? So she says, yeah, it's there, don't worry. And it goes on
Yeah,
and
it's there
on
when
and
it
on, and she
matters,
wants,
and for the things that she loves.
yeah, nothing. She just likes to say my memory is bad, and she's only shamming. She knows exactly what a sharp. She's sharper than you and me put together, Chang. I'm telling you, she never misses a beat. And I've recorded all her stuff. Okay, I get tears in my eyes, but I record all the stuff, and it's beautiful that I sit and I can read poems to my mother. Now, if we could just do that uh, for people, it's such a beautiful thing. So when we talk about poetry, everybody listening in must be saying, "Ah, yaar, ye intellectual baat karne ja raha hai." No, I think I'm talking about
Hmm.
humanity at the same time. I'm talking about motherhood. I'm talking about sonhood, if you know what I'm saying. Ask your next question as well. You start me off on my mother, I won't shut up.
I got so moved by that because I also feel that your mom is a very, very smart woman because she's like, how do I get Boman to spend more time with me? Okay, lockdown is there. Now, how do we make that time more productive? How do we strengthen that bond? And probably that's where that excuse came from that, oh my God, my memory is failing me. I think, why don't you read something to me? And
She's a
that's
sham. She'll
such a
always
beautiful
say no.
moment.
One thing what happened just 3 days ago after the meeting we had, we talked. So I went and I told everybody at Audi that I'm going to be taking my list of poems for my mother. All right. So I went to her,
Hmm.
and just before this story will freak you out, Chang. It is the
Okay.
most serendipitous, coincidental. Coincidence is a bad word. It's serendipitous, this story. All right. So I'm entering my mom's room, and I teach. I teach screenwriting. I've got about 300
Okay.
students now, and one of my students is an 80-year-old lady. She's an 80-year-old lady, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm choking up as I'm telling you this story. I may not mention her name, because not that she said you can't use my but identity. So she sent a message on the group. Again, it was a message of praise, but so I won't say too much. But she just sent the opening line of a poem on a group, on a WhatsApp group, where people are all the time putting the wrong stupid forwards and what have you. And this lady sends me the opening line of a poem. Abu Ben Adam, may your tribe increase.
Wow.
And I entered my mom's room. I said, look at this, mom, I've got this show and I'm so excited. And I want to do this little chat with my friend Chang and for Audi. And she said, oh, poems. So what poems? Can I recommend a poem for you? Now hear this. This is the freaky part. I said, I've come for the recommendation, mom. And she says, how about The Night of the Scorpion by Nissim Ezekiel? All right? Okay? Now, before I enter the room, the lady who sent me the message, Abu Ben Adam, you'll have to follow a little, okay? Abu Ben Adam. Her name sounds like a relative of Nissim Ezekiel. And I message that lady and tell her, are you related to Nissim Ezekiel?
No way. No way.
Yeah.
You're
and
kidding
I'm saying to
me.
myself, this is the freakiest thing I've ever heard. I am talking about a lady who sent me a message about poetry. Coincidence number one. I enter the room to ask my mom which poem to read out. Abu Ben Adam turns out to be one of my mom's favorite poem. However, she recommends a poem called Night of the Scorpion, written by Nissim Ezekiel. And Nissim Ezekiel and this lady who sent me the message sound like relatives. And I asked her, are you related? Saying, no, but so-and-so, we are from the same town. The person you're talking about, we are from the same town. Saying, I love that poem by Nissim Ezekiel. What is going on? I was saying to myself, this is the power. This is the power of poetry. I think that the gods of poetry were getting us all together. My 94-year-old mom, this 80-year-old beautiful lady who's a student of mine in my writing class, and you, Chang, and all these people who are listening in, I'm sure, and I just hope that I've explained the story well so people are touched by it, which is so beautiful.
This must be reminding everybody of probably similar situations that must have happened with them, where a written word or something that has been recited has really connected them in such a way. We would love to hear this poem that you've been reading to your mother. It would be great if you could share
have
that.
no escape. You have no escape. My mother has recommended it. My friend from class, my 80-year-old friend, has recommended it, and we've got to read it. So why don't you put it on the screen, Chango, and I'll just read the poem.
Yes, sir.
And guess what the poem is
There
about?
it is.
Nobody, just don't read ahead of me, okay? Can you hear me clearly? Is my voice coming out nice and clear?
Yes, it is.
Chang, can you hear my voice nice?
I can, sir.
All right. The Night of the Scorpion. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with the poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room. He risked the rain again. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in my mother's blood, they said. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil, balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good, become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, and herb and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children."
Wow. Wow, that
Now,
was so beautiful.
now the point is, it's so beautiful, and we all think about it's about rites and rituals and God. Eventually, this poem turned out to be a poem about motherhood. They were talking about sins and whatnot. What sins? You're a mother who cares about children. What sins could you carry from your last life? It's so beautiful. And when I walked in the room, and Zenobia was there, my wife, and she said, "Yeah, Nissim Ezekiel, Nissim Ezekiel, yes, yes, yes. You know what? I'm going to tell you something even more freaky now. Hold on to your
Okay.
horses, man. We lived in Nissim Ezekiel's building.
Oh no, God. Okay. This
I
is
grew up in
no
front of Nissim
coincidence.
Ezekiel.
It's serendipity.
Yeah, I grew up in front of Nissim Ezekiel. Zenobia and the boys used to meet him every morning at the bus stop. Right outside his house was the bus stop
Oh,
when they used to drop them to the school. And she said, "Yeah, Nissim, I just love that poem, Night of the Scorpion. It was in my 10th standard poetry book. So I'm reading in my 10th standard Nissim Ezekiel's Night of the Scorpion, and my neighbor is Nissim Ezekiel. I mean, how beautiful is that? Is that? How privileged can one be? And that is maybe the power that I was blessed with, to have a mother who loved poems and have Nissim Ezekiel next door to probably share it with us. I think I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to
well,
say.
it came one long circle. It's like coming back to where it was. You met him when you were a child, and then now, many years later, the recommendation that the khwahish that has come from your mom is for a poem by him. The recommendation that has come, that it has been by him. It's quite
And at
a
the same
circle.
moment, when a lady who sounds like Nissim Ezekiel's relative, uh, you know,
Yeah.
does, comes into my life and says something, talks about a poem, no less. Another poem, another favorite of my mom's. Let's go on. Let's go on.
Okay.
Shall we read the second poem, Chang?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
I think
Okay.
ऐसे एक मन नहीं भर रहा है, so another one right
No,
away would
I
be
have to
so good.
read three because all three have been recommended by my mother. So, whether you like it or not, sorry, guys. this is
Let's go for it.
this is a poem that eventually chokes me up in the last two lines. There has not been a time that I have read this poem. Don't read it, guys. We'll read it together. Uh, that this poem has not choked me up in the end. It's an inspirational poem. I read it to my kids ever since they were little. I read it to myself every now and then. It became an automatic choice for tonight. And let's hear it. If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired of by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave life to broken, and stoop to build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will to which to them hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count on you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Wow.
Isn't it
Brilliant,
lovely?
brilliant. It is
Those last
lovely.
two
But
lines
it's
just grabbed me
also
every time.
ironic that, it's in a
What's
way,
ironic,
it's like
Chang?
just telling you that just existing. The ironic bit is that Rudyard Kipling was also the one who said that poetry is not common enough. What you were talking about, that don't intellectualize it. Everybody is a closet poet somewhere or the other. But apparently, this is what he said
Right.
as well at the same time after writing something so beautiful.
Think about it. And it's so
Yeah.
simple, right?
But before,
So simple.
it is.
If you
It
can meet with
is.
triumph
It's
and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, it just blows my mind, those lines. Triumph and disaster, imposters. Eventually, what you're looking for is truth. That's what, Rishi Kapoor, my dear friend, who passed away this year, and everybody tells me, asks me, how do you deal with your success? How do you deal with the flops? It's difficult,
Mhm.
You deal with flops. You work very
Yeah.
hard, and yeah. And he said something very simple. I think it's so poetic, and he says, never let the hits go to your head, and never let your flops go to your heart. Simple, you know. And that's it. You just work on. You just move on regardless, and that's what Kipling is saying. You know, the whole poem is about balance. It's only saying in the 60 seconds, if you can fill the unforgiving minute of 60 seconds of distance run, that's all you got to do. Spend time well. And that's what I think is important during this lockdown. Let's use our time well. Am I preaching too much
Live
or
a
what?
life worth living. बिल्कुल नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं. This is, in a way, it's the interpretation of the poem as well. It is
It
actually one of
is.
my favorites now. And it very directly, it could be anyone telling anybody this thing. It could be a father reading to his son, it could be a mother reading to a daughter, a friend to a friend, a well
Yeah.
wisher to another person. And it just
Right.
says that life has to be worth living. You have to fill it with, as you said, those 60 seconds of worthiness. It has to be
Right.
that. uh, before we move on to the third poem, I actually don't like it that you're reciting only three. I wish you could recite as many as you wanted. But that was what we would have the time for. I wanted to ask you, these three poems have been recommended by your mom, but when you have to
Right.
read for yourself, like when there is no
Right.
real pressure that you have to go and read it at a platform like this, if you just had to read for
Just by the way,
yourself.
there's no real pressure now also. When you read poetry,
Acha.
yeah, what's the pressure? People are listening, and if they're listening well, what's the pressure? Poetry is never about pressure, right? So anyway, I interrupted you. Go on, brother.
Now, what do you like to read by yourself? Is there any particular style or genre that you like?
You can read a sonnet by my good friend Will, as you said. I
Of
can read
course.
something that's a little modern. I can read I can read a lot of things. But you know, I somehow always start with if for some reason, and then of course I've got to practice because I've got to read. That's the pressure when you read my mom, because she'll catch you out if you make a single mistake. You know,
Memory.
my mother, and she can just take off. Huh? She can just take off. But I want to say something. I want to say something about. I'm coming back to my mother and try to round this conversation before we read the third and last poem.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you that my mom always accuses herself of saying, my memory is not good, my memory is not good, and she goes on and on. And her memory is outstanding. And why is it then, Chang, that she remembers poems that she has heard 85 years ago? And she knows it word by word. Do you know why? I was thinking about it
Have
before
no
we.
idea.
I'll tell. Let me take a stab at it. All right. Let me take a stab at it.
Okay.
I think we remember days of innocence and days of beauty. We also selectively might remember days of pain. And you say, I never forget, and we try to forget. But the most vivid memories come from your days of innocence, from the days of things that made you happy. And you may ask mommy what may have happened 15 days ago, and she may not remember as well. But the stuff that made her happy as a child, she'll never forget. So this is the power of poetry. I'm not. I hope I'm not. It sound rather very intellectual. I'm putting it down in a very humanized way. A simple shopkeeper. My mother was a shopkeeper. She ran a
Okay.
shop for 50 years. She sat at a shop every day after my father died, and she used to sweat down with beads of sweat running down her neck. Her hair would be wet because she would sit next to a bhatti, a stove, and fry wafers were being fried, potato chips. She's a shopkeeper,
Mhm.
but poetry enriched her life, and the memory of youth and her childhood stayed with her to serve her today in a day where we turn around and say a 94-year-old woman remembers all this is because you hang on to happiness, joy, and innocence. Well, that's my take on it, Chang.
Yeah, that is. It's a good stab at it, actually. I do believe that that would be the thing. But it would be very interesting if you would ask her, once we're done with this session, if you would ask her why she thinks she remembers those. And it would be really nice to know that answer, because I have this situation with my grandmother as well. She
Uh-huh.
usually cannot remember what's happened on the given day, but she remembers things from when I was a kid, when my mother was little, and very detailed explanations about our childhood, about our growing up years. And even when I ask her questions about how did we land up in India, because our lineage comes from China, and how did we come to be here, why did we come here, she has some it's a very strong memory out there. So I can relate. But I would definitely, I probably, you should go and ask your mother this, and I should go and ask Nani this, that how do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
all those things but not this? Perhaps that would be. But
Beautiful.
Baman, you were talking about teaching, and you have these screenwriting classes, and apart. There are so many aspects of it, and one aspect that is associated, at least in the public perception, very commonly with you, is the comedy that you do, and various forms of comedy that you've done. When you're teaching everybody about screenwriting, what kind of conversation do you have with them when you talk about it? Do you tell them that comedy is tougher, it's easy, or is it just like anything else as long as you put your heart to it?
Ah. Well, you've asked a complicated question, but I think it's as simple as this. I would hate to compartmentalize anything. You can't eventually a story is about somebody's emotions, somebody's feelings, and someone's journey. You can't compartmentalize it.
Okay.
you don't follow a film for its twist and plot. You follow a film for a character's journey. If the journey is not worth telling, which means that the journey, there's no want in the journey, the character doesn't want anything, then the story is not worth telling, right? So what I teach is, uh, you don't write a story, you tell the character. You create a character, you ask the character to write the journey for you, because otherwise we are
Okay.
all the time trying to plot and tell the character where to go, and we play God as writers. We aren't. The character is the author of his own journey, and that is the first basic thing. So when you talk about comedy, I learned as an actor though, and I applied as a
Hmm.
screenwriter also, that no person is funny for 24 hours a day. No person is sad 24 hours a day. If you're serious, you will afford a smile at some point in the day. No person is evil 24 hours a day. You will see a spot of goodness, whether it's with a little dog on the street,
Yeah.
or someone, or with a staff member. You can say, what a bad man, but there will be a moment of kindness somewhere. And you got to aim for that. No man is good 24 hours a day. Oh, बहुत अच्छा आदमी है, बहुत अच्छा आदमी है. नहीं 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 नहीं. कभी कभी वो
ऐसा
थोड़ा
हो ही नहीं
गुस्सा
सकता.
भी करता है, और दूसरे लोग को, मतलब he might even be a little nasty. So we have to aim for that in characters. So when I do a character, there has to be a blend of all these things, otherwise it's very one dimensional. So when you say comedy versus drama, I don't know how to answer that. I try to go for the character. He could be a little funny on a given moment. He could be a little weak on a given moment. He could be emotional too. You can't be one. You can't be a
Mhm.
one note banjo, one string banjo all your life. Ding 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 ding. It's very boring. So that's how I answer the
It's going
question.
to be boring and annoying. No, that's a very good answer,
Yeah.
Baman. Thank you so much, because as an actor who's trying to do more, it's a very good answer for me as well. Because as you said, don't compartmentalize, because everything just requires that kind of approach to the character, and that's great advice for everybody out there who appreciates stories, who appreciates the storytelling, the art of it, and who wants to become a writer, an actor. By the way, when we speak about that, a lot of things have changed in the way people write. We still have the long form, we still have everything else. I started reading at a very late age, Baman. I must have probably acquired taste for it only when I was about 16, and that too because our principal in my boarding school, he realized that we weren't reading enough, so he created this
Uh-huh.
thing that every week you would read one book and you would submit a book report. And most of
Right.
us cribbed about it initially, but when we got into it, we enjoyed it so much. I have not stopped reading. In fact,
Right.
I have a lot of books under the laptop right now to stack it up, and I've been reading all of them very, very patiently and enjoying it as well. Uh, but what has also happened in all this time, even though the written word has metamorphosized, it has evolved to keep itself relevant and fun, whether it is just as you're reading it, or you're reciting it, or you're seeing it as an audiovisual medium as well. In today's time,
Right.
एक बात तो है कि definitely the attention span has gone down a lot. How do you deal with that?
Right.
How do the writers today deal with that when there are not just books, not just outdoor activities, there are multiple stimuli bombarding us all the time, fighting for attention, saying, Mujhe dekho, mujhe padho, mujhe karo. How does a writer counter that?
Now you've asked a complex question. You're going to get an extremely complex answer. But I'll tell you something very straight. Uh, I think that what we are consuming in between is of a very short span. So when we are getting to work, when we are in
Mhm.
the car, when we are waiting for, but let me tell you, on the other hand, if you're a moviegoer, if you're a cinema kind of watcher, the OTT platform, people are binging. They're watching
Yeah.
8 hours of one series in one go. What happened to their short memory then? I mean, short attention span.
Yeah.
They're doing, yeah. Now, so that's a silly argument. We are only using this for time pass. When we want to consume, we don't mind sitting for 8 hours at a stretch to watch The Queen. Yeah,
True
so
that.
that debunks that whole theory. All right, number one. Number two, how do you stick around for 8 hours? By good writing. You're watching an episode on your screen. How do you keep the person engaged? Because of the written words. So you're saying that people aren't writing and reading. There are people who are writing. There are people who
They
are
are,
reading,
yes.
and then they are converting it into the audiovisual. Writing have to be has a very very because in 8 hours you don't have songs, don't have much color, have huge stars to keep you in what they are wearing. You don't, but you're simply because there is a that is involved in the storytelling. Any William Shakespeare, how are you in the story? Why the whole thing and why they? Because there is absolute craft in the form of acts of where they keep changing the beats and technique. I ask you to I give you wood. Can you put four legs and say I'm? You have to know how to make legs of equal distance. That's how you put the
Mhm.
story up. Prop up your story. There is craft. So that's how people. I have no this whole thing of saying people have shot. They watch short videos. That's all rubbish. That's time pass. That's in betweens because people want to be occupied all the time. You know. So there's your answer. If at all it answered it, yeah, there it is.
Well, do you also think that the end result of all of this, the content that we consume, the art that we consume,
Right.
that can also change us as people, that can inspire us or just make us better people?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I was watching a movie the other day. It was called. Please, whoever's listening, just watch it. Find it and watch it. It's a movie called The Judgment at Nuremberg. It's a 3 hour film. You won't lift your eyes off the screen, and you'll hang on to every word. Why? Because you get an audience to listen to something that actually evokes your own conscience. If you don't manage to do that, then you've lost the audience. You cannot tell a story. This happened, then that happened, then that happened, then that happened. No, those are events. Those are a sequence of events. But if you can make the audience feel, oh, what if I am in that situation? Let me see. And you must watch great movies and read great books and read poems to your children and your mothers.
Absolutely. That's such great advice right there. And I'm hoping that it will shape a lot of opinions out there and it will change. Bhavan, there's one thing before you read the next poem. Uh, Everybody has a certain quirk, right? Some people like to sit with their coffee, like to sit with the wine, they probably put their feet up while doing whatever they like. What do you do when you are reading something or writing something or enacting something? What is your personal quirk?
I must be looking if I don't observe myself. I don't observe myself, but I must be looking like a
Mhm.
complete nut because I get very there's a certain excitement. I get very excited. I want everything in place. I want everything nice, and nobody should walk in at the right. Or do you want a cup of coffee? No, no, just now. Now. This is my time, or my time, or my time. And I'm very when the say a movie starts and the credit titles come on, I behave like a little child. When the MGM line comes, oh, I'm most excited when the music starts in the beginning, for a logo, even the logo of the film, I'm excited and I'm smiling, and I must be, if you put a camera on me, I must be looking like a pakka idiot. But I don't care because that's exactly how I watched movies when I was a kid. And I watched them with great innocence. I watch with great innocence now, even though I know how to analyze and break a movie down. But I still would love to watch it with innocence. And that's why I remember those movies, because I watched them with great innocence. But my
Mm,
quirk, I
that's
don't
what
know.
he
I one thing I like a lot of popcorn though. I have to admit.
पॉपकॉर्न चल रही है, दरवाजे बंद है, एंड प्लीज डू नॉट डिस्टर्ब, दिस इज माय टाइम.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what we've done as well. What I've asked about what I've done at my place and what I've asked the backend team to do, that please lock the doors because we have Boman reading more and more poetry, and we have the third one. Although I wish you would read four, five, six, but the third one, who is it
Well,
by, Boman?
there is. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
There is another little thing I teach. There is a rule, even by telling a joke. You know,
Hmm.
when you tell a joke, it's in three acts: the setup, the conflict,
Okay.
and the punchline. A movie is in three acts, right? It's the setup, the conflict, and redemption. Uh,
Yes.
a joke always has three points to it. You know, three mistaken identities. I think three poems is perfect. The fourth one would be one a bridge too far. So I'm going to read a poem, which is which is a poem about movies. It's a poem about
Okay.
movies. Yeah, it's a poem about uh, moviegoers, writers, audiences, producers, critics, all rolled into one. All right, and um, it's the angst. It's about stars. It's about uh, the city of what we were talking a little. Uh, and I don't want to be accused of being called closet poet. So I'm bravely coming after Nissim Ezekiel and Rudyard Kipling, and I'm reading a poem that I wrote, just so that we say, if you feel
Arre.
like writing, if you feel like reading it, you know, people are shy of reading their work because, oh, it's very personal and all. No, no, no. If you had an audience, you'd love to share it. Don't lie. You'd love to share a poem if you had an audience that understood. क्या पोएट्री सुनाएगा गाना सुना दे यार. You know, no, you must read out a poem. So that's why, just to put my money where my mouth is, I'm going to read out a poem about my world, my people, my the cinema audiences, and what have you. You want to hear it?
Yes, sir.
Let's put
Please.
it on the screen. I don't know why now I'm nervous. It's called the cinema hall. A dark, dark room filled with light, projected through a gape in wall. A gape an audience sits within the close-knit temple of a cinema hall. Hearts will jive to united beat, like dancing dust in projector's light. Light that's laden with gifts and pearls skims o'er heads, carrying sound and sight. Months ago, a germ was graced. In a naive head of hope was found, a thought, a theme, a tryst, a tale. A cool draft spiraled, and it was bound. His book now shaped like a beggar's bowl. His mind works less, his legs work more. Hurrah! The written paper's worth the papered funds to start the show. Names and order of price and fame appear and fade with time on screen. Some new, some old, some merely spelt, some as hopeful as the sad has been. Each tale unfurled, each word unmasked, of brother, sister, friend, or foe. The tale is told, the song is sung, of mirth or might, of love or woe. And in the dark, the faces glow. Grateful, joyous lovers sit, save one who's grim and in know. Also, he thinks this analyst. He once had sat with boyish glee, like the boy on left he left behind, his brow all curled, his joy upturned. He lurks alone with pen in hand. The glowing faces shuffle out, with money's worth and wanting more. The analyst in twisted pain, a look that says, what do they know? Makers, movers, moguls wait. In the witness box they all must stand. The scribe thinks he is judging them, but the glowing face is the gavel hand. Names and price and order change, youth and time will judge us all. The dark, dark room remains the same, the close-knit court of the cinema hall.
Woo! Wow. I was going to ask you what or who your muse is, but now I already have the answer. It has come through in this poem of yours, Baman. The muse is cinema.
Yeah. I I
What
just
prompted
feel
you
that
to write this book?
when I started, when I write, there is great pain in writing because you don't know where you're going. There's so much to learn. There's so much to tell. And the pain is can only be turned into joy when, fortunately or unfortunately, there will be time and youth that will judge you. But eventually,
Hmm.
I think it's important that you should be a judge of your own work and what makes you happy. Hits and flops will come and go, as Rishi Kapoor said. You carry on regardless, because if you have not enjoyed the process, movie can make millions of crores. It's got no value to your life. But if you've enjoyed the process, made some new friends, learned a thing or two, felt an emotion, that's a hit. That's a hit in your life. And I think you should look forward to those moments. Targets are fine, but the journey is beautiful. And I just needed to put it down on a piece of paper. So out comes the closet poet.
This journey has
The
been,
ba-
yeah, this journey has been beautiful, and all said and done, I know that our friends out there who are watching us, they've really enjoyed this session, and
I hope so.
they also, I'm sure they have. But मैं ही क्यों सब कुछ कह रहा हूँ? I think we should give the opportunity to them to speak their mind and probably ask you something as well, if that's okay with you, Baman.
Sure, go for it.
All right. We have some friends with us. And the first guest that we have is Kanika Jay Singh. Kanika, I would request you to unmute your mic and go ahead. Please ask a question.
Thank you. So I will start with a comment and then really go on to my question. So firstly, thank you very much for this session to Audi and especially to Baman. In today's age, when we all are reading on different platforms and different things, like say on social media or written text via newspaper, magazine, novel, many of us have lost touch with something so beautiful as poetry. So thank you for getting us back in touch. It was actually reminding me that maybe in today's age, when all of us are into pop music and the latest music, many of us have lost touch with the classical music as well. So I must probably get back to poetry and have some Beethoven on at the background. So it was great. And I really liked your poetry as well. I can't wait to get back into a cinema hall and probably catch a Baman Irani movie. My question really is I was very inspired by what you said about your mom and how you are keeping yourself busy and how alert your mom is as well, especially of her old memories. But what is your advice in terms of how do we stay positive? Because this lockdown is here to, it seems to be here for a long time, and the way we live is changed, I think, for a long, long time, especially for people who are retired. So someone like your mom, what's your advice? How do we remain positive? Thanks.
Thank you, Kanika. That's so sweetly put. But I'll say something. I don't know how long this lockdown is going to go on. This is, I think the first thing I said was we should be grateful. And I think that this is, I think, nature's way of telling us to cleanse. We saw the skies turning bluer. We saw the sea turning a little greener and bluer. We saw dolphins come and we saw ostriches come. I don't know what all kinds of animals landed up at our doorstep. But what is that? What does that tell you? It tells us that I think nature is telling us to cleanse. Part of nature to don't you think it is incumbent upon us to cleanse ourselves in many ways, to be more productive, to help fellow human beings to discover some aspect of you, sharpen your tools, because we're out there doing business. What are we doing business based on? What we're doing business based on a certain craft or a talent. I think the time was given to us to sharpen that talent, to learn a little more. Okay, having said that, when I say I'm grateful, there are lots of people who've suffered financially all around us. That is part of the given that I'm talking, which is sad. But for the ones who are lucky, and grateful to be sitting in their homes. All you've been asked is to sit in your homes and cleanse yourself and share and learn and the creases that you may have. It's like this blazer. If there's a crease on this blazer, that's the only thing that you will see if it's creased. But if I iron it out, we are ready to face Mother Nature again as human beings. I'm talking about the creases that you have on your soul, on your intellect. I was telling my class just yesterday, Kanika, that my class is called Spiral Bound, and that's one of the lines in the poem. A cool draft spiral and it was bound. I think if we had not had the lockdown, we would not be sitting here for 220 sessions of screenwriting if it wasn't for the lockdown. The lockdown says that if you're going to go out in the world and become better writers, first study, learn, sharpen, cleanse, improve. Hope that made sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kanika.
Thank you very much, Kanika. I hope that gave you your answer. And she actually said a very cool thing, that can't wait to get back to the theaters, because your poem directly ties into that as well. Your love for cinema and the fact that we are
Yeah.
still a little skeptical about getting back. But I think we are all going to get back with a vengeance, and we're going to really enjoy those movies. है ना, Boman? वही
Telling
है.
you, nobody's listening to me.
They are.
Nobody's
Right now,
listening.
we have
Of
another
course, we'll get back to
friend
the
out here.
cinema. I mean, how
We
long are you going to be
will.
watching a movie on this? 7.1 DTS, Dolby, Wolby. You know what? What are we doing all this for? Because of we've got to eventually see it on the big screen, and this is a way the world will keep tumbling. The world will keep tumbling, and we'll keep going back to the cinema. Then something will come. We'll be pulled out of the cinema and say, "Now is the time for OTT." Yeah, sure. It'll all happen.
We have our next guest, Boman. His name is Danish Murtaza, and he has something to say. Danish, please unmute your mic and go ahead.
Good evening, Boman sir. Good evening, Chang.
Hi, Danish. My son's name is Danish, just by the way.
Okay, sir. Actually, it was a priceless moment this evening. Thanks to Audi and thanks to Boman sir, Chang. We got to know a lot of things. Actually, in today's life, actually, we miss out a lot of things, those priceless moments, those life lessons. I guess the lockdown really helped us in learning few things. My question to you is that if you weren't an actor, what would you be up to right now?
I think I may have been a teacher, teaching screenwriting. I don't know, but I would love to be part of the cinema business in some form or the other. Whether I contribute as a teacher, or as an actor, or a screenwriter, or as a director. But otherwise, I really wouldn't have minded being, honestly, musician. I don't know. Danish, I've tried so many things, and I'm keeping on trying stuff. So if somebody tells me, if you weren't an actor, I wasn't an actor till 20 years ago. Before that, I was a photographer. I wasn't a photographer before 10 years before that. I was a shopkeeper. And next year, I'll be a debutante director, if you know what I'm saying, at the age of 61, right? So I keep changing my profession. So I'm sorry to keep everybody confused about what I do as a living, for a living. So, I really maybe after 10 years, if you ask me if you weren't a director, what did you be doing? I'll let you know, find out, because I'm discovering still.
Well, Danish, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Danish. Thank you.
Well, Boman, I was also going to ask you that question, that what does the future hold? But it's great that you have already told us that, because you are a man of so many talents. It's actually difficult. Right? Jitni bhi tareef kare, it is difficult to say what you will be up to next.
Nice.
But that जो छोड़ा आपने वहां पे, जो ऐसे आपने कहा कि maybe you'll be a director, is that next on the cards?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, next year. Yeah,
Congratulations.
absolutely. Yeah, and I've been working on it for the last 8 years. You can't just say, okay, I've been an actor for 18, 17, 18 years in the business, so now I've graduated, I can be a director. It's like that photography story that I told you. I can do any sports, but do you know how to do photography on boxing? No, you got to sharpen your the craft. You just can't jump and say, okay, I'm ready to direct. No, I'm ready to write. No, you first got to learn. So just because I've been around enough and done enough of movies does not mean I know how to write and direct. I learned from scratch. You owe it to yourself. You cannot
Those are
mutilate
some
the arts.
important lessons.
Yeah.
That is a good advice for everybody out there. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Baman sir is telling you that you can achieve anything, but please work hard at it and you will be able to. Thank you so much, Baman, for being here with us on Visionarium 2020 and all the very best. I'm very excited about your directorial debut that will happen. And of course, everything else that we'll see you at.
Thanks, Chang. It's such a delight to speak to a young man with such a wonderful mind and such lovely words come out of your mouth with truth. That's the thing you look for. Another thing that you look for when you do anything is truth. You can do any amount of technique, but if there's no truth, and you speak with a lot of truth, and all I can say is, I feel proud. I feel proud, and I hope to keep surprising you with something every now and then. Surprise myself. Characters should surprise themselves, and only then will they surprise the audience.
Thank you so much. And before you leave, I have a message from a common friend of ours. Chef Sanjeev Kapoor says, "आप मेरा गिटार कब वापस कर रहे हैं?"
The thing was that Chef, I did a show with Sanjeev Kapoor, and he wanted me to do a show to raise some funds, and he sent his daughter's guitar, and then my guitar was in the shop. So finally, tell him I've got my own guitar long time ago. Here it is, but so I had to send the guitar. Just tell him to send the address. What is it? He can't just let me have it. What the hell? But he's asked me to sign on it for his daughter. So I just want to call him and say I don't want to sign on it and spoil it. So where do I find a little corner? Can I sign it in a little corner and not mutilate it? So I got to have that conversation with him. He's such a wonderful guy. Such wonderful people on Visionarium. All people I look up to, every single one. And Chang, you've done I'm sure if today is anything to go by, you must have done such a wonderful job with brother Virat and Shankar and Sanjeev and like today. And you're part of Visionarium in a bigger way than you think. So congratulations to you too, Chang, for making this so beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Chang.
So much, Baman. Thank you. And thank you for being part of it. It was a pleasure, genuinely. Truth.
Thank you.
Well, an evening with Baman Irani is something that you're not going to forget anytime soon. That is also the truth. His views on the written word, on poetry, on so much actually, even beyond what we thought we would talk to him about, is something to stand by. I hope this evening was a pleasant reminder to you about the importance of art and creative expression. So no matter what profession you are in, please do not shy away from the creative expression that you are capable of. Write for yourself, write for people, put it out there, nurture it, display it, and life will be richer. That's all we have for you tonight. For some of you, there is even more to look forward to in the future, as the best questions from today will get special giveaways from Audi India. Wish you all many more entertaining evenings and a very healthy life. Take care and see you soon.